You're listening to the Angela Henderson Online Business Show, episode 489. Hey there, you amazing human, and welcome to the Angela Henderson Online Business Show, the podcast that is designed for female entrepreneurs who want to make more money in a way that is in alignment for them. If you're looking for practical advice, proven strategies, and expert insights to help you navigate the challenges of growing your business, then you've come to the right place. Welcome, my friend. I am your host, Angela Henderson, a proud Canadian living in beautiful Australia, and I'm a business coach, consultant, and strategist who has helped thousands of women around the world build successful businesses. Through solo episodes and interviews with successful business owners, industry experts, and thought leaders, you'll get insider insights into what it takes to succeed in today's digital age. Whether you're struggling to scale your business, looking for ways to boost your productivity, or seeking ways to overcome the challenges of being an entrepreneur, this show has everything you need to succeed and more. So subscribe, pop your headphones on, and get ready to creating the business and life you deserve today by allowing the Angela Henderson Online Business Show help you create a winning strategy, develop the right mindset, and build lasting wealth. Today's episode has been sitting with me ever since I wrapped up with my mastermind call yesterday with my amazing masterminders. And it's funny because we started off our call talking about different parts of AI. And by the end of that conversation, I wasn't actually thinking and talking with them about AI anymore. I was actually starting to think about people and the other business owners that I work with, different leaders that I look up to. And if I'm completely honest, I was also starting to think about myself. Now, before we dive into this episode, I want to make it really, really clear. This episode isn't about why AI is bad. In fact, I personally use AI almost every day because it helps me either brainstorm ideas, organize my thoughts, summarize information, and speed up certain tasks. Let me emphasize that word, certain tasks. And I think it's an incredible tool when it's used well, but that's exactly what I think it should be, a tool, not a replacement for your ability to think. Because one of the things that came up on that call yesterday with my masterminders was how quickly we're becoming dependent on AI. The more we discussed this conversation, the more I found myself wondering whether we're slowly outsourcing one of the most valuable things we have, which is our ability to think critically, our ability to solve problems and to come up with ideas that are uniquely ours. And the more that I've sat with this thought over the last 24 hours, the more that I realized this conversation isn't actually about AI. It's about being average. Now, I don't think AI is making us average, but what I do think is that it's exposing where we've already become comfortable with being average. Think about your own day for a minute. How many times do you immediately reach for AI before you've even tried to think something through yourself, right? It could be you need to write an email or a caption for Instagram or solve a problem for a client. Maybe you're thinking about running a next summit or a launch. So guess what? You pick up, go to ChatGPT or Claude, and you ask AI. Now, again, I'm not saying don't use it. What I'm asking is whether you've stopped thinking before you start prompting, because those are two entirely different things. One, human is using AI to expand your thinking, and the other uses AI to replace your thinking. And I really think we need to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Is AI replacing your thinking, or is it expanding? As you know, I've built 3 businesses over the last almost 2 decades, and I can honestly say none of them were built because I'd always had the right answers or AI to help. I did not have AI to help when I first started my first business, Finley and Me. It was just me and my thoughts and a lot of fucking errors. My businesses were built because I learned how to think, but I also had to sit with problems that didn't have obvious solutions. I also, over the years, had to learn how to ask better questions, or at times I had to learn how to challenge my own assumptions. But I feel most importantly, I had to learn that sometimes the first answer isn't the best answer, and that the process of thinking your way through something often leads to your ideas you never would have discovered if you stopped at the first solution. Again, in my opinion, this is where innovation, creativity, and leadership stems from. But I also believe that we are losing innovation, creativity, and leadership because of AI and the fact that we're no longer thinking for ourselves. And again, I worry. I worry deeply that we're becoming so focused on speed that we're forgetting the value of depth. Now, this is coming from someone whose word for 2026 is speed. And as I've talked about on this podcast, speed is one of the biggest things you can have in order to scale your business. But also, speed and the ability for it to have the quickest answer isn't always the best answer. Or I should say, the easiest path isn't always the one that creates growth. Think about that for a minute. From the conversation with my masterminders yesterday, again, I have not stopped thinking about average, average. And how is average potentially showing up with my own clients, right? So, one of the things I love most about the women that I work with is that they are ambitious and they want to create incredible businesses and also incredible lives. What they often tell me is that they want freedom and they want financial security, they want to make an impact, but they ultimately want to build businesses that support their families and also just to create opportunities for other people. You see, these women that I work with, they're not aiming for average. None of them are waking up in the morning going, you know what? I hope I build an average business today. But somewhere along the way, I do think that average quietly starts to sneak in. Let me say that again. Average quietly starts to sneak in. And this is not just with my clients, but this has also happened to me too. We tell ourselves we'll get back to that workout next week, or we'll have that difficult conversation with our team member next month, or we'll spend more quality time with our partner once the launch is over. You know, how many of us have said we'll start these things once everything starts to calm down? But you know, just as well as I know, that the reality of it is nothing is really ever calming down. And before we know it, what was meant to be temporary has quietly become normal. And that's where average lives. It doesn't usually arrive with a big announcement, but it does creep in. And it creeps in either by you or I making one excuse or making one decision at a time, and then it becomes having the compound effect. And so from my call yesterday with my mastermind clients, I started asking myself this question: Angela, where have you become comfortable being average? And I haven't stopped replaying that. Because again, it is easy to point the finger at someone, but it is much harder to point it back at me and myself. So I started to ask questions like, where have my standards slipped? Where have I stopped expecting more from myself? Where have I accepted good enough when I know I'm capable of better? These are some of the uncomfortable questions that I've sat with over the last 24 hours. But what I also know that from uncomfortableness, these questions have also given me opportunity to reflect and explore different ways of growth. So let me ask you the same thing. Where have you become comfortable being average? Quick pause from today's episode. If you are serious about scaling your business, increasing your impact, and surrounding yourself with the right people, then I'd love to personally invite you to my annual 3-day Women in Business conference at the Gold Coast. For 3 powerful days, you will learn from incredible speakers, connect with ambitious women from around Australia, and walk away with practical strategies, meaningful relationships, and opportunities that could change the trajectory of your business. Because sometimes your next breakthrough isn't another podcast episode or online course, but it's about getting yourself into the right room. And if you've been thinking about joining us, now is the time. Why? Because we only have 50 tickets remaining for this 3-day annual Women in Business conference. And once they're gone, they're gone. To grab one of these last remaining 50 tickets, head to angelahenderson.com.au and grab yours today. Now, let's get back to the episode. Now, again, I want to emphasize on this. This is not where are you failing or where are you struggling, but rather where have you quietly lowered your standards and let average sneak in. I often talk about that when I work with people. It's not just about business. So maybe it's your health. For example, you know that your body feels better when you move it or when you get enough sleep, or maybe even when you eat great food to fuel your body properly. But somewhere along the way, convenience has become more important than consistency. And now your health is just average. On the other hand, maybe it's relationships. Of course, you love your partner and equally love your children. But when was the last time you were fully present with them? Not half listening while answering emails or checking your phone every few minutes, but actually fucking present. And you see again, over time, average starts to quietly come in. And those things like checking your email and not being fully present become acceptable. And now your relationships are just average. On the other hand, maybe it is your business. I mean, you tell yourself you want 7 figures or that you want to create impact. Hell, you might also tell yourself that you want to become the go-to person in your industry. But are your daily actions reflecting that? Or are your daily actions reflecting that of an average human? Because wanting extraordinary results while consistently producing average effort is a conversation I have with business owners all the time. Again, people will tell me that they want more visibility, but guess what? They disappear for weeks at a time. Or, Ange, I want more clients, but they avoid selling because they're afraid someone just might say no. And yes, some of the women I work with will tell me that they want a stronger team, but guess what? They avoid having the conversations that strong leadership requires. And again, this isn't about judgment, but it is about awareness, because awareness is where things start to change. So, again, where have you become average in your relationships, in your business, in your health, even maybe in creating wealth? And one of the biggest lessons that I've learned over the years is that extraordinary lives aren't built in extraordinary moments. They are built in ordinary ones, but they're built on that Tuesday morning when you don't feel like getting up to exercise, but you do it anyways. Or they're built when you pick up that phone and make that sales call you've been avoiding. But they are also built, possibly, is that even a word? But they are also built when you finally have the conversation that's been sitting on your heart for months. Those moments, my friend, don't usually feel like life changing. In fact, they feel boring or mundane. But when you stack enough of those ordinary decisions together, they create extraordinary results. So think about it. Where are you continually to maybe not show up and maybe just be average? But if you weren't average, these results would change so much for you. People again ask me on a regular basis, how have I built 3 successful businesses? And they assume that it must have been some secret strategy. And often I say it wasn't. It was the thousands of ordinary decisions repeated consistently over time, showing up when I didn't feel like it, learning when I could have coasted, listening when I could have defended myself, and even asking better questions instead of assuming I already knew the answers. That's it. That's what I did. Thousands of small decisions that have allowed me to become the 1%, right? And I think that's why this conversation has stayed with me over the last 24 hours, because I don't want us to become so dependent on convenience that we lose the things that actually make us valuable. And that valuable that I'm talking about comes through our perspectives. It comes through our own lived experiences. It also can come from our intuition or our creativity and our ability to solve problems. That is what makes us extraordinary, not average. And yes, AI can support all of those things, but it should never replace them. Because at the end of the day, people don't work with you because you know how to write a good prompt. That is not what people are paying you for. But what they are paying you for is because of the work that you do, that you have created with your own framework and your own knowledge and your own experience and your own expertise. But also, many people will pay to work with you because you've walked a path they haven't walked yet. That is your value. That can't be replaced by AI. So today, I want to leave you with one question. Where have you become comfortable being average? And again, this is not where are you behind or where do you need to work harder, but rather where have your standards quietly slipped without you even noticing, resulting in you becoming comfortable with being average. And I also want you to think about what would happen if instead of looking for the quickest answer this week, you challenge yourself to think a little bit deeper and backed away from AI to do it for you, to sit with that problem that you have a little longer, or maybe to have that difficult conversation without AI prompting you. Because again, I believe your biggest competition over the next decade is not AI, but your biggest competition, though, is becoming average. But the good news, average is a choice, which means excellence is too. And as I often have said on this podcast, whatever you're not changing, you are choosing. Choose wisely. Do you want to choose to be average, or do you want to choose to be excellence? That choice, my friend, is yours. I hope that this episode has got you thinking a little bit like it has been eating on my brain for the last 24 hours. Maybe don't take that much time, but whenever there is a topic that is dear to my heart, such as this one, and I feel it so deeply in my body, I know it is a topic that I always want to share with you, the listener on the other end of this podcast, because it's important to lean in. It's an important to have acknowledgement and awareness around how AI can help us, but how AI is also rotting our brain. If you look at some of the studies around dementia and our neural pathways, and when we start to get older and we're no longer firing those neural pathways off, our brain starts to die slowly and little bit. And I believe at the moment, our brain is slowly also dying the more that we use AI and the less that we use our ability to have critical thinking. So again, choose wisely, my friend, because your brain is something that is so powerful. But once those neural pathways start to no longer get fired off, we don't want our brain dying. Now, again, I just want to disclose I'm not a medical advisory person, so that is just my opinion. So always make sure you seek medical advice around your brain, anything like that. But yes, that is my opinion. And remember, if you want help with your blind spots in your business, need strategy, help with getting momentum, and someone to help keep you accountable, then let's chat. Head to angelahenderson.com.au and explore how I can support you either with one-on-one support, my mastermind, coming to my 3-day Women in Business conference in November, or even coming to Bali. Feel into what you need and reach out at angelahenderson.com.au. Until next week, have an amazing day, and I look forward to you joining me again for another awesome episode of the Angela Henderson Online Business Show. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to the Angela Henderson Online Business Show, www.angelahenderson.com.au.